Hi there, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawalker, your host. Today we're going to be going over the highly anticipated new album from Kanye West, DONDA. I am a little bit late on this one as I wasn't really sure just kind of how to approach this review. I enjoy hip-hop and rap quite a lot, but I've never really done a review on an album in this genre, and I wanted to take a little bit of time to soak in this record so I could really a bit more accurately capture my thoughts on this album. As far as what I knew going into this record, I didn't really listen to any of the live-streamed listening parties, and I tried my best to avoid leaks in general. As for the actual release of this album, I'm not exactly sure what happened between Universal Music Group and Kanye West, but we did get Donda, even if it seems like it might be in a bit of an incomplete state. So the entire record sits just shy of about 2 hours in runtime and has some alternate takes or versions of songs tacked onto the end of the record, which I probably will only touch on a little bit, but let's get into it. The intro track to the album is Donda Chant, a fairly straightforward spoken word piece that initially comes off as a bit bizarre, but then you think about it and it kind of makes sense because, this is a post-Life of Pablo Kanye album, so it is kind of a case of expecting the unexpected. I've also seen a few edits of this where they lay the track over the top of the next song from this album, Jail, and it matches up pretty, nicely and pretty coherently, so maybe that was the intention with this song, but it's still kind of a very jarring and attention-getting intro, so I'll give them that. Next up, we've got the first proper song on the album, Jail, a slowed-down, bass-heavy banger that kind of blends in gospel stylings into the Kanye playbook of fairly clean and crisp production. Kanye is kind of like layering parts on here, like a lot of, it seems like a lot of simple reverb effects, but kind of the way that these parts echo one another. There's clearly some different takes blended into one. Pretty neat technique here on the layering. The Jay-Z feature here is fantastic. It's really interesting how much they strip things back into the mix and they just kind of let Jay-Z's performance really shine. You can really hear him enunciate pretty much every syllable and can hear the nuances in his delivery. I think it was probably one of the better touches here on this track. The third track is God Breathed. Another very lo-fi bass beat runs this track with some very glitched out production that builds up over the track's length. Things are kept tight and simple for the most part, with some occasional heavily glitched out or auto-tuned segments that work pretty nicely with the minimalist backdrop that they've created for this song. Next up, we've got Off the Grid, a lyrically dense track featuring Playboi Carti and Fivio Foreign. I think I'm pronouncing that right. The Carti verses are fairly obnoxious for the most part, while the Foreign verses mesh far better with the track despite the amount of censored lyrics. I do like the sentiment of the song, though, despite the awkward Carti verse and the rest of the material here. It's pretty excellent. Kanye's portion of the track is actually fantastic, and while I was hoping for some kind of goofy lyrical moments, there wasn't really all that much here. Everything here seems to be pretty well thought out. The next track is Hurricane, what I would consider probably the best track on this album. The Weeknd as the opening feature here is fucking fantastic and was absolutely the right move. Lil Baby does a great job following up to the Weeknd's opening performance. Kanye comes in with some more surprisingly well thought out lyrics, though The Weeknd pretty much outshines everyone else on this track. This is kind of his moment. He just comes in and steals the show. So this is a song that I can see absolutely having some staying power over the next few years. So in my opinion, the first few tracks on this record are pretty excellent, but seeing as we have only covered like 5 songs so far, one of which being an intro track, there's still a very, very long way to go, as this album is 27 tracks long. From this point, though, in my opinion, there's a little bit of like a quality inconsistency. Not that there's not like good tracks past this point, but that there's definitely some songs that are a little bit more of an acquired taste or maybe need some further listening. And maybe some stuff that could have stood to have been like self-edited by Kanye. But let's kind of just get into the rest of the tracks here. Track 6 is Praise God, the intro of which is a spoken word part from Donda West. It's absolutely the best part of this track. Everything that follows is almost too busy, and the feature from Baby Keem is baffling as he kind of runs right into the goofiest possible sound, and I think kind of ruins the momentum a little bit that that track had been building. Next up is Jonah. I absolutely love the performance by Vori here. The chorus he does for this song is actually fantastic. This is another of my favorite tracks on the record. Pretty straightforward for the most part. Next track we got is Okay Okay. We've got a really cool electronic building segment that kind of flows into the lyrics from Kanye and Fivio Foreign. Lil Yachty has a pretty damn good verse on this song too. I like that they've kind of taken the approach of stripping things back especially on this song and for a lot of the tracks on this album. The beat, is so stripped back that it kind of just lets all the rappers kind of pull things along. It's pretty well done. Next song we got is Jonah, or Junior. It's kind of like a bastardization in the pronunciation. And almost gospel organ is kind of the main instrument here with a trap beat holding it down. Initially this is a pretty cool track, but it gets kind of old pretty quickly with the repetitive beat, which wouldn't be that bad if the organ sample wasn't so distracting. Believe What I Say is the next track, a lot more of a jam than most of the songs on this album, with a really nice chunky bass line that makes you move. As far as most of the songs of this album go, this seems like one that is most similar to his older material, and as a result it's one of the most coherent moments on the entire album. Very well done and very straightforward. So at this point I already feel like I've kind of exhausted many of the talking points that I would have had on this record. I mean, there's a couple of really standout tracks here and there, but the majority of the songs on this album are like really unremarkable but solid, or just mixed bags entirely, just quality-wise. Donda, as a listening experience for me over the time it's been out, has mainly been an album I've listened to like at the gym or while doing something else, which has been fine, but sitting down and really listening to it is, been surprisingly difficult. It's not that it's abrasive or even all that bad or much of a challenge, but it's a bit dry and kind of trails off without focus, which makes it really easy to kind of just drop it and not pick it back up for a while. The benefit of this is that if you drop it, if you drop back into the album, it doesn't really feel like you need to start over or anything. Things just kind of keep moving, which I do appreciate a bit. At this point, we are 11 tracks into this album, and this next track is called 24. There's some really cool sampled gospel singers on this song, but Kanye sounds a bit like he's not really putting his all into this one, like he's kind of exhausted from putting this album together, as I am from listening to a lot of these middle portion tracks here. Remote Control follows a similar trend to the last track with a fairly sleepy atmosphere that is pretty hard to squeeze much meaning out of. However, the Gabgo Gabgalab sample at the end is possibly the most Kanye West thing to ever happen. I cannot fucking believe that he sampled it, and I fully blame Video Game Donkey for this excellent move on that. Moon is a fantastic little 180 with a Kid Cudi feature that kind of makes the song sound a lot more and feel a lot more like a Kids See Ghosts outtake. While it's also a very low-key track, it fits well with Cudi's style and makes this one of the better songs in this mid-portion of the album. Heaven and Hell is a solid banger that's very nice and short and to the point, which is a very welcome change at this point of the album. It seems like a lot of this part of the album could have been cut in favor of songs that have a little bit more going on for them, like this one. Excellent track overall. The title track, Donda, is a very short song, almost interlude-like, with a piano piece that is very wonderful, and a lot of spoken word from Donda West, who has a fantastical theatrical delivery on this track. This is a pretty remarkable track just because of her excellent performance. Next track, Keep My Spirit Alive, is another pretty good overall, unremarkable song with the exception of some decent delivery from Conway the Machine and KC. Next up we've got Jesus Lord, which is one of the longest songs on the album, second only to the alternate version of the same track, which clocks in at like 11 and a half minutes. The majority of this song is a little bit of a drag, a little bit hard to get through, but there is a really interesting segment that kind of finishes up the song on both versions of the song. That's a story from Larry Hoover Jr. about his father being jailed and how he's fighting to get his father's freedom. It's definitely a bit more of like almost a hypnotic moment for this whole album, which is kind of weird considering this is a Kanye record. Next track is New Again. It's another of these kind of throwback tracks that lend themselves to the earlier writing styles of Kanye, the only difference being that there's a whole lot more Jesus in the lyrics, but sonically it is a solid banger. Television is a short interlude track that is only like a minute and a half long. It doesn't really add much and could have easily been left on the cutting room floor in my opinion. Lord, I Need You is another fairly short track that stumbles over itself, though this one has one of the best Kanye-isms on the entire record, with it's the best collab since Taco Bell and KFC, so it's got that going for it. Pure Souls is a pretty long track at 6 minutes with one of these, organ samples and some dense lyricism. Actually listening to this song, though, instead of just kind of having it on, makes it like glaringly obvious how much of this just kind of seems phoned in. I mean, there's a lot here, but it's not that there's not really much going on with the amount of material that is here. they're not really just doing anything with the extra runtime that has been given to them. It's just kind of a waste of time after a certain point. Come to Life is actually kind of a touching track that is fairly emotional as far as Kanye goes. He sounds kind of loose on this track, like he's really just kind of trying to hold himself together. The lyrics and the tone of the song are kind of at odds during certain segments, but it's nothing so out of left field that the song ends up like not working or something like that. This is one of the more interesting songs here, and the release of tension into this kind of musical ascent is actually really fantastic. This is a pretty excellent track. In my opinion, final proper track on the record is No Child Left Behind. I'm not really going to be looking at the alternate versions of the songs at the end of the album as much, just because they don't really have all that much different content-wise. Some of them are a little bit longer with some different features, and some of them are just extended verses, but they're more or less the same songs with, just maybe some extra parts in there. No Child Left Behind is a pretty short ending track and almost seems a bit underwhelming as a close to what is seemingly a fairly ambitious album. I am kind of surprised that Come to Life wasn't the album closer, to be completely honest. As far as final thoughts for this one, I've had one hell of a time covering this album for you guys. I've got very mixed feelings on it, as the more I've listened to it, the less I've ended up enjoying the album, and usually it's kind of the reverse. As a whole, I've really only leaned towards a few tracks. I can tell that there's really a lot of great ideas on this album, but I just can't quite wrap my head around everything here. Maybe it's me, but I don't know. For now, I think this is a solid 4. I'm absolutely still going to be coming back to this album as I hope it grows on me more. But thank you all so much for watching. Just want to let all of you know that I do now have a reverb shop open. So if you guys want to pick up some of my old gear, there is a link in the description where I will be occasionally posting pieces of music equipment, be it guitars or basses or amps or pedals or mixers, etc. Pretty much any piece of gear that I'm just not going to be keeping around anymore. That link will end up in the description of all of my videos from this point on. And just go ahead and check out that link every once in a while. I will be updating that, and also in some of the videos, if I drop a bunch of stuff on there, I'll let y'all know. Thank you all so much again. If you liked the video, please drop a like and consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the flip side.